You know, as a toy collector, a toy hunter, whatever you want to call it, a curator of plastic junk, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, as a collector is, what do you do with this stuff after you collect it, after you buy it? Do you have a special place for it to go? Do you have a dedicated room or a couple rooms? Does it go anywhere in your house? You know, the answer is different for every collector, and everybody's collection will fit differently with how it goes. I've been collecting toys for a very long time, and it's still something that I struggle with to this day. There's a lot of toy lines that I love. I'm always finding new things while I'm out on my hunts, and I'm forever running into the problem of where does it go? Behind you, what you see in a lot of my videos is my studio. It's my in-home studio where I do all of my video work. The half of the room that's behind the camera here is where I have my table, where I film all of my toy reviews and stuff like that, all my hauls up close. But this half of the room gives me a place where I can curate a small selection of toys that also happens to work perfect as a backdrop for these videos. But I really have come to love my studio room because there's a really great mixture of different stuff in here. I thought it might be fun to take you around what's inside some of these cases behind me. So these here are your standard Detolf cases from IKEA, and they work fine for this room. There are some space constraints within them, but I have found a way to kind of curate a small collection of toys that are displayed currently in my studio. It's a good selection of things that are among my favorites and just cool toys I've picked up over the years. For example, right there in the center is my Mosquitor shelf. Mosquitor is my favorite Masters of the Universe toy, so I have several different iterations in there. A lot of these are international variants, but there's also a couple test shots. A test shot for the Masters of the Universe Classics line, and a test shot for the Masters of the Universe Origins line. This is one of my favorite shelves in my collection. It'll likely stay here for the time being. I also have a selection of some of my favorite Masters of the Universe variants, a lot of these also being international. You can see that I've got things in here like a Leo Skeletor and a Top Toys Modulok, as well as the Scareglow with his glow-in-the-dark scabbard, and the Bluebeard Stratos that I picked up a couple years ago. Then there's the Food Fighter shelf. This is one of my favorite Weirdo toy lines, and I love having all of these figures displayed here. Behind them is a custom refrigerator playset that's based on the unreleased toy. It was made by a small indie company called Bam Toy Co. I actually took a look at it on my main channel a few years ago, but I love having this thing displayed with these figures. Then of course, you've got some of my heavy hitters, like my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. This shelf is a lot of the heavy hitters, what people would call some of the higher priced items, or even some of the grails. Scratches in there, as well as a few of the others that are some of my favorites. But then down below that, I think might be my favorite turtle shelf, which is the shiny shelf. This is basically any figure in the line that has vac metal. It's not all of them, but it's a lot of them, and I love the way they all look together. There's my Voltron shelf. This has got a selection of different Voltrons in the case, such as the Soul of Chogokin Voltron, which is one of my favorite renditions. There's also the Super 7 Ultimates Voltron standing in there, as well as the Panache Place pilots with their helmets and their keys, something that I just completed last year. And I even have the Mattel pilots that were released back in the Matty Collector days. I've got this whole shelf here that's dedicated to the Remco Warrior Beasts, one of my favorite 5.5 toy lines. I've also got this Weirdo shelf of Troll Force figures. These are so strange, but holy cow, I love the way they look displayed together. And I've got a lot of other various 5.5 figures that are among some of my favorite toys in here as well. These actually take up several shelves in here, but I love looking at them. And then there's some stuff that's down on the bottom that you don't really see very often. And to be honest, I end up using the bottom as storage a lot. For example, I've got this Wheeled Warriors playset just kind of crammed in here on the bottom that one of my best friends locally gave to me. This was his childhood toy. I definitely plan on doing something with this in video form at some point. Across the top of these cases, I have a selection of some of my favorite vintage playsets, which you can usually see in the background of my videos. I have my comic spinner rack in the corner that's filled with some of my favorite comic books I'm collecting. And then I think one of my favorite corners that doesn't get seen very often is my bookcases. Now, the bookcases themselves are filled with lots of toy books, but atop that, you've got a bunch of oversized figures, as well as the shelves above those. Things like Inhumanoids, my LJ and Gremlin, you've got the Super 7 Alien figures, you've got the Mondo Scareglow, you've got all of the Toy Biz vinyl Marvel superheroes, Giant Bebop and Rocksteady, Slam Dunk and Don. I love everything over in this corner. It's one of my favorite corners to look at. So that's just a little peek at what's currently displayed here in my studio. But come with me. I want to show you something else. Oh, hey. Welcome to my embarrassment, aka my basement, where you see totes and totes filled with my toy collection. If you've been watching my channel for a long time, you might remember a basement of mine where I displayed my collection. That was in my old home. I've actually been in my current home for 7-ish years now. And this house, while it's a bigger house, better suited for my family, the basement itself is a basement-y basement. It's a dungeon down here. It is storage. And unfortunately, it has become the place where all of my toys that aren't currently on display end up going in these stacks of totes. I am taking a big leap showing this to you guys because I gotta be honest, every time I walk down the stairs into this basement, I kind of hate myself a little bit. This is embarrassing, and it's part of the driving force behind why I decided it was time for a little bit of a change. Crazy enough, this is already a little bit more organized than it was just a couple months ago. I've started digging through all of my giant Rubbermaid totes, sorting out toys, trying to put them in better order in these clear totes so that I can see things a little bit better, and I've started trying to decide what I really need to keep and what is okay to sell off and make room for stuff that I really want to display. This is a hard thing to do as a collector because in theory, when I look at all of this, I say, if it's just gonna sit in totes, why do I need it? Except every time I start digging through this stuff, I start rediscovering it, I start getting excited, I start remembering where I got it or who gave it to me, and I feel attached to it. Can you relate to that? Because I feel like a lot of us can. Anyway, while we're here, I thought it would be fun to dig through one of these totes real quick and see what's inside. You want to see a piece of my collection that's been stored away for years? Let's do it. This is actually a really good tote. There's some really fun stuff in here. And I'm gonna tell you, sometimes, especially many years ago, one of the reasons that I collect the things that I do is because I always go, that would be a great video. And I'll start stockpiling things for this potential video. And then this video just won't happen because I have so many other ideas and there's so many other projects in my head. So a lot of times when I'm going through here, I'm like, oh, I remember buying all those because I was going to do a video and it never happened. That's exactly why I have all this stuff from the Swamp Thing toy line. But also the Swamp Thing toy line from Kenner is pretty great. This right here is the Marsh Buggy. I believe that the item is actually open, but it's complete in the box. Really fun stuff. And this isn't the only Swamp Thing in this tote. Check it out. The Transducer playset. Oh man, this thing is so cool. And it's definitely something that I've got the itch to open up and maybe play around with. Maybe I could do a video on this stuff at some point. I'm just gonna keep saying things like that. We'll see if it ever actually transpires. But also, I would love to display these, so maybe I'll find room for it. But that's part of the decision-making process when I'm digging through these totes. How about the Swamp Trap playset? Did you realize that they made so much stuff for Swamp Thing? Look at this thing. It's like an amazing diorama piece to put with your Swamp Thing toys. This is freaking cool. Random carded Bucky O'Hare toy. I actually have this entire toy line loose. Oh man. Are you ready for this? Mr. Freeze Cryo Freeze Chamber! Yeah, legit. They made play sets for the Arnie Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin. This is the Cryo Freeze Chamber playset that I legitimately bought because A, it looks like a fun feature, but B, because I have an obsession with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. But here's the coolest thing about this, and I'm a sucker for this sort of thing too. They reused that same playset for the Batman and Robin Joker Toxic Lab. Look at this. Same toy. Same toy. I always love it when toys get recycled. So it's the only reason I bought that. Because I was like, hey, there's a Mr. Freeze playset. It's the same thing. I need it. By the way, there's not just one, but there's 2 Mr. Freeze playsets. This one is the Ice Fortress. This is one that I didn't even know existed until I was just collecting this stuff randomly. How cool is that? There's actually more carded Bucky O'Hare figures in here than I realized. And honestly, I think the reason I have so many of these is because I did do a video on Bucky O'Hare as part of my Toysplosion series. And sometimes when I did videos like that, I would also purchase carded examples if I didn't already have them so that I can show the carded examples in the video. It's probably why I have those. This is one of my favorite toy lines ever. And it's funny because I think I have multiples of these around. This is, which ones is this? Rom and Mega Heart from Mattel's Computer Warriors toy line. And they are carded. They're in these plastic baggies, so they're probably hard to see, but carded. Cool. Got a couple of DC items in here. We got more than just those Freeze items. We've also got the Batman Joker cycle. This is the Toy Biz one from the '89 Batman toy line, which is a toy line that I absolutely love. I didn't know this was in this tote. I need to put this with the rest of my, I have like all my other DC figures, like my Superpowers and my Toy Biz and everything in like a different tote that I've already organized. This needs to be with that stuff. See, this is why I need to clean really bad. Okay, there's one more item in here, but it's really cool. And maybe you didn't know about this. So we were just talking about toys that were recycled. We saw that Cryo Freeze Chamber for Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin that was recycled as a Joker's Toxic Lab playset. Well, did you know that Playmates Toys recycled the Ninja Turtles pizza thrower as a Chicken Run Mr. Tweety's chicken pie thrower? It is literally the same vehicle as the vintage Turtles pizza thrower with a different paint deco, and the stickers make them as pies instead of pizzas. Pretty cool stuff. And honestly, the pizza thrower mechanic has been reused so many times at this point for so many different toys, that really could be a video talking about all the different uses for that. See, going through this stuff can be fun, and it's really cool looking at all the stuff I've acquired over the years for various reasons, but that's what makes this tough. Do I keep all this stuff? Or is it time for it to find a new home? I can't answer that today, but I have a lot of work to do still. Let's go back up to the studio. So that brings me back to my studio, and it kind of brings me to what my goals are for toy collecting in 2025. One of the things that I really want to do is rearrange this studio. Some of this stuff I really like, but I'm gonna make some decisions to change out some of this display. I've spent a lot of time collecting and trying to complete several different subsets of toys over the past couple years. Things like LJN's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons toy line, Remco's Chris Star toy line, or even things like G.I. Joe Ninja Force. And I want all of that stuff to have proper representation on these shelves behind me in the studio. I also just recently bought some LED lights to light up these cases. I'm going to try to install those. We'll see how those look. So stay tuned, because that sort of stuff is certainly coming up in a future video. And I might even be asking your help to figure out what I want to display in those shelves. But toy hunting. What am I doing with my toy hunting this year? Well, I started writing some ideas down on this whiteboard, and I'm almost hesitant to show this because I don't want people chasing down the things that I want. This is not complete by any means, but I tried to set myself different categories of things that I know that I want to look for and add to my collection. Grail pieces that I've separated into two categories. Moderate meaning I think they're a little bit more obtainable, and difficult meaning they're a lot harder to find and or they're very expensive, so they're more pipe dream items at this point. Now, like I said, I have a lot of work still to do on this list. This is not complete by any means. This is something that I really want to spend some time writing down so that I have real goals while I'm out doing my toy hunts this year. And on top of that, as we mentioned in the scary basement, I am working on thinning down my current collection, getting rid of some stuff that maybe have just been in totes for way too long, stuff I'm not really looking at. And the goal is to use any money that I make from selling off that stuff to go towards bigger grail pieces that I actively want to add to my collection. Will I be able to stick to it? I'm sure there's going to be some difficult spots. I'm certain, knowing me, I'm going to find random things and I'm going to buy them even if they're not on my list. But I'm going to do my very best to stick to this. I want to see what I come out with on the other end. At the end of the year, what does the toy collection look like? So come with me on this journey. We've got some trips coming up. We're going to be traveling around. We'll be hitting toy stores and toy shows like always. And maybe I'll be adding some of these new grails to my collection. Let me know your thoughts. Do you have tips, tricks? Are you dealing with similar stuff? Have you gone through your own kind of method of thinning down the collection and trying to stay more focused? I'd love to hear about it. Comment down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Happy hunting, my friends.